The realities we're about to reveal in this video should serve as a serious wake-up call for all Americans. Once seen as the backbone of the nation and its primary driving force, the U.S. middle class is being squeezed by today's economy. Not only has the number of middle-class households been shrinking year after year, but the purchasing power of middle-income Americans has also dropped significantly since 2022. Experts predict it could take years before wage growth catches up with the rising cost of living. A recent household budget index from Primerica Financial Services Company found that middle-income households, defined as those earning between $54,000 and $110,000 annually, have seen their purchasing power fall to 85.6% this year, down from a peak of 102.8% in November 2020. The index's baseline of 100% represents incomes rising at the same rate as consumer prices. Any figure below that threshold indicates that people's earnings are lagging behind the cost of living. For the past 2 years, inflation has been drowning families financially. According to Primerica's data, the latest decline erased 6 years of purchasing power gains in just 24 months. At the same time, consumer prices surged by 9.1%, marking the highest 12-month increase since November 1981. Although inflation has cooled somewhat, households are still far from fully recovering. The index has yet to return to 100, and even when it does, it will only mean that incomes are finally matching expenses, not that families have recouped their previous losses. Many aspects of life that middle-income families once took for granted are becoming increasingly unaffordable. That's why we've put together this list of 15 things that middle-class Americans will likely struggle to afford in 2025, along with an in-depth look at why these financial pressures keep mounting. 1. Taking vacations. The tradition of taking vacations and extended family trips, especially overseas, will probably be something many middle-class households will have to forego in the coming year. Transportation, food away from home, hotels, and Airbnbs have skyrocketed in price since the pandemic, and these costs are expected to continue rising as companies in the hospitality industry try to recover from previous losses. Lower global oil production also means that road trips and airfare are about to become even more expensive. In addition, hidden costs like increased resort fees, baggage charges, and dynamic pricing on flights are adding to the strain. Even domestic vacations are becoming prohibitively expensive as national park entrance fees, gas prices, and lodging rates rise, making travel a luxury for the upper class rather than a common middle-class experience. 2. Sending kids to summer camp. If you can't afford to take a vacation, at least you can send your kids to summer camp, right? Well, not anymore. The cost of summer camps has skyrocketed, making this once common childhood experience a privilege reserved for wealthier families. According to American Camp Association, the average daily fee for day camps exceeds $175, while overnight camps can run upwards of $450 per day. That means a single week of camp could cost thousands of dollars, an impossible expense for many middle-class parents already struggling to cover basic needs. Even though some financial aid options exist, they are largely reserved for lower-income families, leaving middle-class households without much assistance. What's worse, parents who rely on summer camps as a form of childcare during the school break are now left scrambling for alternatives. With inflation pushing the cost of extracurricular activities like sports leagues and music lessons even higher, many children are missing out on key developmental experiences that previous generations took for granted. 3. Child care. Raising a child has always been expensive, but the cost of child care has reached crisis levels. For many families, child care expenses are now comparable to rent or even a mortgage payment. The cost for full-time care ranges anywhere from $5,500 to over $17,000 per year, depending on location and the type of care provided. That's a staggering financial burden for middle-class families already stretched thin. With inflation making everything more expensive, child care costs are expected to keep climbing. Parents who once relied on daycare services while working full-time are now being forced to make difficult trade-offs. Some are turning to family members for help, while others are rearranging their work schedules just to avoid the added expense. In many cases, one parent is even considering leaving the workforce altogether, an option that only further limits financial stability. This growing affordability crisis is creating a ripple effect throughout the economy, making it harder for working parents to advance their careers while putting an increasing strain on household budgets. The bottom line: middle-class families are running out of options. 4. Being a stay-at-home parent. So, vacations are out, summer camp is too expensive, and childcare costs are soaring. Can one parent just stay home to take care of the kids? Unfortunately, for most middle-class families, that's no longer a realistic option. If a household wants to remain in the middle class, both parents typically need to work. Giving up one income is a massive financial hit, and the consequences can be even more severe. Nearly 40% of divorces are tied to financial problems, according to legal experts, and losing a major source of household income only increases the likelihood of falling out of the middle class entirely. Even for families who can get by on a single income, there are long-term risks. Stay-at-home parents often struggle to re-enter the workforce after years of being out of a job, facing obstacles like outdated skills, lack of recent work experience, and difficulty securing new employment. This creates a vicious cycle, making financial recovery even harder down the line. For many parents, the only way to make it work is to juggle remote work with caregiving, essentially doing 2 full-time jobs at once. Others are forced to work opposite shifts, barely seeing each other in the process. The result? A growing number of middle-class families are stuck in a financial squeeze, unable to afford childcare, but also unable to afford the alternative. 5. Sending kids to private school. Of course, every parent wants the best education for their child, but will private school tuition still be within reach for middle-class families in 2025? Possibly not. Many parents are already dissatisfied with the public school options in their districts, and with tuition costs rising, private schooling is becoming a privilege reserved for the wealthy. Private school tuition has been steadily increasing, and inflation is only making it worse. Fewer financial aid opportunities are available for middle-class families, meaning many are being priced out of the education system they once had access to. As tuition continues to outpace middle-class incomes, more families may be forced to turn to overcrowded public schools, homeschool options, or alternative education methods that weren't part of their original plan. 6. Becoming a homeowner or investing in real estate. So, you've done everything right, gone to school, landed a decent job, and saved up for a home. But will that be enough? At this rate, homeownership may become an unattainable dream for many middle-class families in the near future. Housing prices in high-demand areas are skyrocketing, and bidding wars have made it nearly impossible for the average buyer to compete. Many sellers now expect buyers to offer well above the asking price, waive inspections, and even pay in cash, requirements that put middle-class families at a significant disadvantage. And even if you can secure a home, you're not in the clear. Mortgage rates are the highest they've been in decades, property taxes keep climbing, and homeowners' insurance costs are soaring. In some regions, rising property tax laws and policy changes are making it harder than ever to maintain ownership. The American dream of homeownership is slipping further away, and for many middle-class families, renting may be the only option left. 7. Having insurance. Insurance is one of those essential expenses that most families can't afford to go without, but for the middle class, the cost is becoming unsustainable. Health insurance premiums have skyrocketed in recent years, with employer-sponsored plans seeing a 7% increase in 2023 alone. That marks the highest jump in over a decade, and the trend is expected to continue into 2025. Auto insurance is another growing burden, with rates increasing by a staggering 46.2% since January 2020. If you live in an urban area, your rates may be even higher, especially as insurers adjust their policies to account for rising accident claims and thefts. Homeowners insurance is also up by 37.8% over the last 4 years, with some providers outright refusing to cover high-risk areas like wildfire-prone California or hurricane-exposed Florida. For many middle-class families, this means facing tough choices, opting for less coverage, higher deductibles, or, in extreme cases, going uninsured and risking financial disaster if an emergency strikes. 8. Paying for high-speed internet and streaming services. In the modern world, internet access is no longer a luxury. It's a necessity. From working remotely to online learning, the ability to access high-speed internet is crucial. But as demand rises, so do costs. The average American household pays around $65 per month for high-speed internet, with premium plans exceeding $100. And that's just the base cost. If you're in a rural area, you might be paying even more for slower speeds. Streaming services are also becoming a growing financial strain. Once seen as a cheaper alternative to cable, streaming platforms have steadily increased their prices, with the top 5 ad-free services now costing a combined $87 per month. That's more expensive than many traditional cable packages. Families that used to afford multiple subscriptions are now cutting back, forced to pick and choose between their favorite shows. 9. Wellness services. Maintaining a healthy lifestyle isn't just about diet. It's also about fitness and self-care. But for middle-class families, the rising costs of wellness services are making these options less attainable. Personal trainers now charge an average of $70 per hour, while boutique fitness classes, such as spin or yoga, cost around $45 per session. In major cities, these rates are even higher, with some gyms charging upwards of $150 per month just for membership. Even seeing a dietitian or nutritionist, a service that could help prevent long-term health issues, has become an expensive endeavor. A single consultation often exceeds $200, and insurance rarely covers these costs. This means that for many middle-class Americans, prioritizing health and fitness is a financial luxury rather than a necessity. 10. Buying healthy foods. Eating healthy is often portrayed as a simple choice, but for many middle-class families, the rising cost of organic and specialty foods is making it increasingly difficult. Organic fruits and vegetables have seen a 13.1% price hike in just the past year, compared to an 8% increase for conventional produce. Over the past 4 years, grocery prices overall have risen by 28%, while organic food prices have surged by 37.5%. This means that even though many families want to eat healthier, the cost of organic meats, fresh produce, and whole foods is pushing them toward cheaper, processed alternatives. As a result, the affordability gap between health-conscious eating and budget-conscious shopping continues to widen. 11. Buying new technology. Technology is advancing faster than ever, but for the middle class, keeping up with the latest gadgets is becoming a luxury. Smartphone prices are expected to jump by 50% in 2025, surpassing $400 on average. Laptops, smart home devices, and other electronics are also seeing steady price increases due to inflation, supply chain disruptions, and corporate monopolies. With companies like Apple and Samsung releasing new models every year, consumers are finding it harder to justify upgrading their devices. Instead of upgrading every 2 to 3 years, many are holding on to older models longer, even as software updates make them slower and less efficient. 12. Home upgrades. Renovating a home is no longer just about aesthetics, it's also about energy efficiency and sustainability. However, the cost of home upgrades is soaring, putting green technology like solar panels and energy-efficient appliances out of reach for many middle-class homeowners. In 2024, the cost of installing a residential solar panel system ranged from $15,000 to $25,000. While these investments can save homeowners thousands of dollars over time, the steep upfront costs make them inaccessible to most middle-income families. Even basic home repairs, such as replacing a roof or upgrading plumbing, have become prohibitively expensive due to rising labor and material costs. 13. Healthcare and specialized medical treatments. Medical costs in the U.S. have always been high, but they're rising faster than ever. Even with insurance, the cost of specialized treatments, prescription medications, and surgeries is reaching new heights. Many middle-class families are now struggling to afford essential medical care, with some choosing to delay procedures or skip doctor visits altogether due to cost concerns. Long-term care is another growing financial burden. Nursing homes and assisted living facilities have seen a 10 to 15% increase in costs over the past 2 years, making it harder for families to afford quality care for aging parents. Those who require long-term care without a financial plan in place may find their savings depleted much sooner than expected. 14. Leisure in retirement. The dream of retirement used to include travel, leisure, and time to enjoy life after decades of hard work. But with inflation affecting airfare, hotel stays, and even basic dining costs, many retirees are finding that their golden years are far less extravagant than they had planned. Rising costs have forced many middle-class retirees to cut back on vacations and recreational activities. Even domestic travel is becoming less affordable, with gas prices making road trips expensive and flights costing more than ever. Retirement, once seen as a time of relaxation and adventure, is now turning into a time of financial stress for those who didn't accumulate significant savings. 15. Retirement itself. Perhaps the biggest financial hurdle for the middle class isn't just affording retirement leisure, it's affording retirement at all. Studies show that Americans need at least $1 million in savings to retire comfortably, but most middle-class workers are falling far short of that goal. A recent report from Go Banking Rates found that in Florida, a retiree would need around $1.1 million to sustain themselves for 30 years. In California, that number jumps to over $1.3 million. Yet, the vast majority of workers nearing retirement age have less than $200,000 saved, making full retirement increasingly unrealistic. Many middle-class workers are now preparing for delayed retirement, with some expecting to work well into their 70s. Those who can't continue working may find themselves relying on Social Security alone, an income source that, for most, isn't enough to cover modern living expenses. Over the past few decades, the standard of living for the American middle class has steadily eroded. What was once considered a comfortable lifestyle, owning a home, raising a family, and retiring at a reasonable age, has become increasingly out of reach. The rising cost of everything from housing to healthcare to basic necessities is putting enormous strain on middle-income households, forcing difficult financial decisions on families that once thrived. If current trends continue, the middle class as we know it may soon cease to exist. The economic squeeze is pushing more people toward financial insecurity, making it harder to maintain stability, let alone build wealth. Without policy changes or economic shifts to counteract these challenges, the future looks increasingly uncertain for millions of Americans. What do you think about these economic challenges? Are you feeling the financial pressure? Let us know in the comments. If you found this video informative, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Economy Explorer for more in-depth economic analysis. Thanks for watching.